Traveler, hurry, have a seat. I've heard something, if you have time to listen.
Chapter 7. Wolfgar was gone when Kaighleigh woke, just as she knew he would be. She stretched beneath the canvas and lazily popped her head out of the tent. Rain still fell, steady and dull, a fine drizzle that soaked into everything it touched. The sky was a flat, colourless grey, and the woods felt quieter for it, as though even the most carefree sprites of the forest had been dampened by the day. Kaighleigh was the first to wake once more. She set about her morning tasks without hesitation, moving quietly so as not to disturb the others. She tended the horses first, feeding them, watering them, her hands practiced and gentle. They accepted her presence easily, heads dipping low as they ate. Once saddled, they began to munch the grass gathered the day before, steam rising faintly from their bodies in the chill rain. Only then did she turn to the fire. She prepared breakfast, coaxing the flames back to life, and took down her tent, folding the damp canvas with care. The work passed quickly. She had always been good at keeping herself busy, especially when her thoughts pressed too close. As she worked, she hummed softly. It was a lullaby her mother had once taught her, a tune meant for moments of sadness or loneliness. Connie had hummed it to her often, and now, still aching from the loss of her parents, Kaighleigh let the quiet melody slip from her lips. Her voice was thin, a small treble at best, nothing like her mother's strong, beautiful tone. Wolfgar had always said she sang like a banshee when she was little, wailing at the top of her poorly developed tenor. He claimed he cringed whenever they herded the sheep. "You used to tease me," Kaighleigh signed. Wolfgar perked his ears somewhere beyond the trees. He was not far, but far enough that he could not hear her voice aloud. "Thank the elves sheep are tone-deaf," she continued, mimicking the rough cadence of his voice. "You hear their bleating? They're begging you to stop, child." She nodded heavily, pouting as she remembered. "But I always kept at it," she added stubbornly. "If I had half a mind, I'd bellow now in some ungodly tone just to sour your mood." Wolfgar huffed and turned away, resuming whatever business occupied him beyond the camp. "I can sing just fine at times," she insisted, straightening a little. "Highly unlikely," he retorted. Kaighleigh smiled despite herself. She finished the stew, adding sweet grass to the boiling pot along with the last of the rabbit and bone. She made a mental note to remove the bone before serving. With her hands on her hips, she looked about the clearing, used to her unseen conversational partner being absent. The habit was hard to break. At times, it must have looked as though she argued with nothing at all. "You haggard old." A hand clasped her shoulder lightly. She jumped. Wolfgar gave a low grumble somewhere in the woods. "Good morning, Kaighleigh." Kruger had come around the fire, bending down to breathe in the steam rising from the pot. "Ah," he said, inhaling deeply once more. "The last time I had a woman's cooking was so long ago." He glanced up at her sideways. "You may cook for us any time, my dear." He smiled warmly. "All of us need the warmth of a woman's touch now and then," he added, pausing as if weighing his words. "The mother knows we haven't had that in so long." Kaighleigh wondered how long it had been since he had felt such warmth, since he had known closeness, companionship. The thought unsettled her. How easily her mind wandered now, how curious she had become of such things. Was this normal? Or was it simply the awakening of questions she had never allowed herself to ask before? "Kruger," she said quietly, "did you have a wife back in Terminag?" The cloud that crossed his face was immediate. "There was a woman I loved," he said slowly. "She had many suitors, and I was not her favorite. We had known each other since childhood. She saw me as a friend, nothing more." He stirred the stew, eyes fixed on the fire. "I hoped, once, that in my later years she might choose me. But no. I have no wife. I have taken human lovers over the years, taverns, inns. Once, a woman even traveled with us for a time. But she grew tired of the fighting, of my quest. His voice softened. She knew my heart was set on another. She grew jealous. He fell quiet again, then spoke once more. I will find her, Kaighleigh. I could have saved that child. I could have raised her as my own until she was old enough to wield the voice of the Seiren. I could have saved my people. His words struck deep. Kaighleigh knelt beside him, trailing her fingers over a fallen leaf in the dirt. You will find her, Kruger, she said gently. I believe it with all my heart. And someday you will save your people together. He shook his head. No, she will save them. I failed long ago. Tears stung her eyes. His burden was immense, his rest forever denied. She could not help him, not yet, but she vowed silently that one day his people would know his courage, that all of these men would be remembered as the heroes they were. Good day. Dante had risen. Kaighleigh stood, giving Kruger's shoulder a reassuring pat. What is that smell? Dante asked, motioning toward the pot. She smiled faintly. He knelt beside Kruger, rubbing his hands together. It's a damn good thing we picked her up, or we'd have starved on your cooking alone. Kruger's mood lifted at once. To feed mongrels like you, he shot back. Kaighleigh smiled. Yes, Kruger could still laugh. Hope mattered. Movement mattered. I didn't think it was bad, she said lightly. I rather enjoyed it. Many odd herbs. Then surely you've not had his boar, Kor chimed in cheerfully. Surely, Jack added as he rose. Kaighleigh glanced at him, one of the human companions, darker of skin from life along the coast. Dante had told her of his injuries, of how Yanti had healed him and taken him in. All of them were comely in their own way. Trag and Spencer lingered apart, quieter than the rest. Dante had said they had been outcasts once, humans who worked for hire. She would learn their stories in time. The others gathered around the pot, bowls in hand, eating heartily. The sound of their enjoyment filled the clearing, and Kaighleigh felt useful, accepted. We must be moving soon, Dante said. He was fully armored now, steam rising faintly from his plate as Kruger handed him a bowl. He ate with gusto, as did the others. Kaighleigh watched them quietly, comforted by the simple truth that she belonged here, for now. They were ready in little under an hour, mounted and pushing out of the rocky forest. Rain fell steadily, soaking straight through the cloak Dante had given her. It clung to her shoulders, heavy and cold, and before long her fingers ached and her limbs began to tremble. She said nothing, keeping her discomfort to herself as they rode on. She wasn't noticed until the path narrowed, so thin their horses had to move 2 by 2. By then, the cold had claimed its price. By the gods, how long have you been quivering, child? Kor's voice rang out sharply. Being called child made her bristle. She winced, teeth chattering as another violent shiver ran through her. She was cold to the core, no pun intended, and had been for some time. Wolfgar gave a small, maniacal laugh at her private jest. She sent a sharp mental ping his way. He ignored it entirely. She straightened in the saddle, gripping the reins tighter, though it did nothing to still her shaking. For most of the morning, she answered defensively, but it is nothing. Kor shook his head. He looked the eldest of the elven men, perhaps in his 40s, though still pleasant to look upon. Lord Dante. It was the first time she had heard the title spoken aloud. Dante turned in his saddle at once. Kaighleigh shot Kor a glare sharp enough to wound. She did not need nursemaids. Well, perhaps she did, but she did not want to be fussed over. They had already saved her more than once. The lady shakes like a leaf. Dante's expression hardened immediately. We are still several days from Mainstay, he said, glancing at the others. We must hurry on. Then he looked to Kruger. Is your horse rested enough to take on the lady? Kaighleigh felt a flicker of disappointment. She would not be riding with Dante. But she remembered him saying his horse was already wearing thin, and she would not have it collapse from exhaustion on her account. Yes, Kruger replied easily. The poppet doesn't weigh more than a saddle. Kaighleigh rolled her eyes. I see no complication, he continued with a grin. Come, poppet, I'll keep you warm. He drew his grey steed alongside her brown plough horse. Both were massive, powerful beasts, though Kruger's sat much higher. She reached up instinctively, but he reached down instead, plucking her neatly from the saddle. She clung briefly to his arms before he settled her securely against him. His dark cloak came up and around them both, and warmth flooded her at once. Dry warmth. Comforting warmth. The fabric was light, impossibly soft. Elven, Kruger murmured near her ear, his voice deep and close enough to make her skin prickle. She leaned into the furnace of his chest, feeling strangely protected. She had to peek her head out now and then. Kruger was much taller than she, a mammoth of a man. Just like her father. The thought relaxed her instantly. Kruger had her father's build, though younger, perhaps late 30s at most. The familiarity eased her nerves until he poked her in the ribs. Do not get too cozy, lass. I am no nursemaid. She straightened quickly, biting her tongue. Forgive me, Kruger, she said softly. But you remind me very much of my father. A much younger version, no offense intended. He laughed, broad and genuine. No offense taken. I am far older than your father, I assure you. He smiled. It is an honor to be likened to strong figures. Fathers are strong men, are they not? She glanced toward Kor. He nodded once and looked away. Is Kor a father? She asked quietly. Kruger nodded. Was, he corrected gently. His son died long ago. Brave lad. Fell protecting his people. Pride and grief mingled in Kor's posture. One could not dishonor the dead by mourning forever. Wolfgar had always said that. To remember them with strength was the truest honor. Someday, Kaighleigh thought, she would tell the tale of her own parents. She would build them a small temple, burn incense, and give thanks. They would be honored for their sacrifice, for loving each other so fiercely, for dying in one another's arms, knowing their daughter was finally safe among the Elven. The horse jolted forward suddenly. They burst from the narrow pass into a twisted forest, branches arching overhead like warped ribs. Unease crept along the edge of her mind. We are gaining on the ogres. Wolfgar's presence surged back into her thoughts, steady and sharp. She scanned the trees, squinting through the rain, though she saw nothing. How many days? She asked. Depends on their pace. The rain slows them. It burns their eyes. The burr his presence caused in her mind itched. She almost laughed. Terrible beasts undone by weather. There are 12, he continued. Large. Dangerous. Remember the trolls from the river? They were left behind. 8 more joined the ogres later. Her unease deepened. I do not want you near this battle, Wolfgar warned. She agreed instantly. The forest groaned as they rode through it, trees twisted and malformed. These trees are strange, she noted. The twisted forest. Faery-fed. They have survived much. Wolfgar grunted out. Her curiosity stirred. Fairies? She chimed. Mind fluttering to what they could possibly look like. Smaller than humans. Winged. Ancient. They sense danger and hide from it. Wolfgar cut through the fanciful images that were spinning around in her mind. She stiffened. They know where we are going? She asked. Yes. It was a curt answer. Her blood chilled. No, Wolfgar snapped as she considered changing course. Mainstay is safest, for now. The king will grant you asylum. The ogres will wait. And if your brother learns of me? She shot out at him. Wolfgar shook. Then you will flee like the wind. He is ruthless. He would take you alive, his voice dark, foreboding of the darkest possibilities. Her stomach lurched. He would take you to his bed, Wolfgar warned. Her breath caught. He would force me. She could barely say it, even in her mind, to his. Worse. Wolfgar growled, even more unpleasant than usual. Tears welled. If that happens, our bond would sever, Wolfgar said quietly. Your innocence is what binds us. A sob escaped her. Are you well? Kruger asked aloud. You look pale. She leaned into his warmth, shaking once more. No, she whispered. I am fine. But she was not. She never would be again, not as she once was. Wolfgar would be gone if she lost that innocence. Gone forever. That is why I forbade lovers, he admitted. I could not lose you. Her chest tightened with sorrow and love. I will always be here, he promised. She nodded. Some lessons were cruel, but they endured, and she would remember this one for the rest of her life. Next time. The road narrows, the forest twists, and Mainstay draws closer. But the closer they come to safety, the more dangerous the truth becomes. Because now Kaighleigh knows what can be taken from her. And once fear is given a name, it is never easy to forget.